Today I'm making a vegan stromboli. Do you know what it is? It's a rolled up pizza. And history has it that an Italian American living in Philadelphia, he was a pizza maker, invented this. Whoever did, thank you, because it's delicious and it's not hard to make. It's a beautiful dinner to take to a friend's house because the presentation is amazing. And it makes two about this size, so you can put one in the fridge or the freezer and eat it the next week. It's so fantastic and it's not difficult, so take note. And I'm going to stuff it with meatballs and mushrooms and of course my favorite cheese from Fromage. And I'm gonna put tomatoes and always put some greens in there because they're healthy. I'm gonna put arugula and basil. I can't wait to show you guys, and it's not difficult, so please make this one. It's really easy. Okay, I'm gonna use my stand mixer, but you can just do this in a bowl. Problem when you do it in a bowl with the bread that needs to be kneaded is it just takes more time. No problem, but I'm gonna use my mixer. So I'm gonna put spelt flour, of course, my favorite flour, and then I'm gonna put yeast and garlic powder, onion powder, salt. By the way, you guys, this crust is oil-free. So if you want to make the stromboli oil-free, just leave out the meatballs and the cheese and stuff it with a bunch of other veggies and tomato sauce or tomatoes, and it's still really good. But this is an oil-free crust. So I'm going to mix this around a little, and then I'm going to add my water, applesauce, and yogurt. Okay. And now let's add the yogurt and applesauce. That's a common thing. You wouldn't think of it in a dough, but actually you don't even taste the applesauce. It just helps moisturize it. Okay, so now I'm gonna give that a little stir, and then I'm gonna pour the water in while it's going. Okay, the dough hooks in. And now it needs to knead for 8 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes, I timed it. Wanted to be sure because when you're doing kneading, it's easy to stop too early. That's looking great. Now all we want to do is put it in, form it into a nice ball, put it in here and cover it. And so I'm just going to try to get it into a nice little ball. Let's get it in a ball. Then I just get a little flour on my hands, put it on the bottom, and a little flour in my bowl. Now we're just going to cover that up. Okay, now I'm just going to put it over here in a warm spot. I just set it by my stove because it's summer, but sometimes I put it in the stove with the light on, but make sure you don't turn the oven on. Okay, that's gonna rise for about 30 minutes, maybe 60. We're looking for it to get 1.5 times bigger and no more than double its size. And when that's done, then we're gonna roll out the dough. But meanwhile, let's make the filling. Now we're gonna cook the mushrooms and onions because obviously the greens and tomatoes and meatballs are done. So I'm gonna cook them in the pan a little first. I actually like them cooked first. It doesn't matter. I don't like to put my onions in raw and then they cook inside the stromboli. I prefer to cook them first, and mushrooms too because I like them nice and caramelized. So let's get started with that. I'm gonna set the mushrooms in, and then we're just gonna put the onions around. As usual, we're going to do a little veggie broth instead of oil. So I'm going to let those juices of the mushrooms come out, and then I'm going to smash it with my little weighted cast iron just to push it down, and then I'll flip them over. Meanwhile, we can be slicing up these tomatoes. You see all that water's coming out of the mushrooms and the onions. I think these mushrooms are ready to smash. And it's important to let all that water dry up, and then those mushrooms will get caramelized. We're gonna flip them over as soon as the liquid is all absorbed. The onions are looking good. They don't need to be caramelized because they just need to be softened, and they'll do great inside, but the mushrooms, I want to get some brown on them. And then I'm going to slice them up, and we're going to build our stromboli. Okay, I want to add some spices in there now. I'm going to put oregano and garlic salt and some basil, dried basil. There's going to be fresh basil inside. See, that's looking good. That's just about where we want them. Just going to mix everything around, and a little salt and pepper. Okay, let's turn that off. Time to roll out our dough and make our strombolis. Check it out. Nice. So we're going to begin by cutting it in half because we're going to make two. You're going to press it down, and as early as you can, you're going to try to get it into a rectangle. So I'm pressing down and I'm stretching it that way. And you can put a little flour on the top, and then you just start rolling. And you hold the parchment paper and even the dough like this and roll up. And then turn it around. And we're going to make sure it gets elongated first. We need it wider than this, but we need it much longer than wider. Okay, so the first thing I do is I take my bench scraper, and I'm just going to make some lines on where I want the filling to be inside those lines. Because I'm going to do a fancy one like a braided bread. So we're going to put our filling in there. But what we're going to do is just watch. We're going to take this as our cutter, and you're going to literally just cut this in and cut this in. So this is going to be the top. So whatever's going to be on the bottom goes first because we're going to braid it over. So I want the cheese on last because I want that to maybe melt through the slits. So I think first to go down would be maybe some, let's say some onions. And I'm just going to do half because we're going to build a second one. So I want a nice thing of onions. And then maybe I want to do the mushrooms. And most of the mushrooms will go on this one that I'll eat. Yum, that is already looking good. And now how about some meatballs? Now you can leave them chunky and whole like this. I kind of like that. And tomatoes. And now I have some of my friend Yusuf, his cheese called Fromage, that's his store. And I picked up some of his mozzarella. So I want to do some nice chunks like this. And some basil. How's that looking? I think that's looking pretty darn good. I wanted to add a little bit of his ricotta in between. Maybe just a few pieces of arugula. Okay. Wow. So are you ready? Watch how we do this. So you take this point, so you go like this and you bring it over and bring it over. And then this one goes over and you keep going over and you try to get these to stick. So this one goes, and it's nice to leave a little gap if you can. It doesn't always, but you'll see it pokes through. See how you can see through the little cracks. By the way, I have the oven preheating for 450 degrees. I usually start it out at 500 and then I turn it down. So right now I just turned it down. It's been at 500. Now we're going to brush the tops with soy milk because we want them to get nice and brown. Traditionally, they would probably just smother olive oil all over the top here. But I'm treating myself to my cheese, so I want minimum oil everywhere else. How about that? Looks like an Italian pizzeria in here. I'm gonna try to cook them on the stone at the same time. If not, I gotta load them in one at a time. They made it. They're hanging off the stone, so they'll cook a little droopy, but they're gonna be delicious. 30 minutes, I'm gonna set my timer and I'll see you right back here. Check it out. Which one do you guys like better? Number 1, that was the first one, and this is the second one. I'm curious which one you guys like. You know, this is kind of the more traditional style to roll it and then just slice it. This is beautiful, but I don't know. I kind of like the traditional one. How about you guys? I'm curious. So leave me a comment below which one you like. And now we're gonna taste them. They're pretty much the same, so I'm gonna keep this one because it's gonna be a little easier to freeze. And I'm gonna taste this one right here, and this one has the mushrooms in. Okay, let's give it a taste. It's really hot. As always, I don't wait long enough for it to cool. Look at that. Can you see? There's the meatballs and the mushroom and the basil and the tomato, and look at all that melted cheese. Oh my. Wow, that's amazing. That looks and smells so good. And normally you would eat and just dunk this in the sauce or put a little sauce on, but I'm gonna take the first bite just plain. I got my mushroom. Fantastic, amazing. Oil-free crust, soft, delicious, crusty on the outside. Inside it's filled with all those savory flavors that you love, whatever they are. Put whatever you like in there. Amazing, fantastic. And all it did was 30 minutes of rising. And the rest you just pile in. It's so easy, you guys. Please try it. Fantastic. Here's to you, and please subscribe. Thanks, you guys. I really appreciate you. Thank you.